Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. I'm delighted to welcome back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, author Veronica Grace. Veronica, welcome. It's great to be talking with you again.
It's great to be back, Corey. Thank you.
Just want to congratulate you on your next book. It's called Can You See God? Personal Essays Reflecting on God's Presence in Our World. So, Veronica, can you tell me all about what you've written here?
Yes. So, Can You See God was inspired by my undergraduate experience at Lemoyne College. It is a Jesuit-founded school, so their spirituality really comes out in the events that they host and in the classes that they teach. And a lot of times their spirituality focuses on finding God in everyday events. So not just looking for him in miracles or waiting for a voice to fall from the sky. It's very much, where is he in our day-to-day lives? Is it in the smile of a friend? Is it in something you read, something you listen to? Is it simply just in a moment of quiet and rest?
Veronica, what sorts of readers do you think would get the most out of it?
I think people who are looking to find a connection or maybe connect back to their faith might be interested in reading this book. People who might have lost sight of God in their lives and wanting to kind of find or connect with God again might be interested in this text.
So once you got started on it, was this an easy write for you, or were there some speed bumps maybe along the way?
I would say with this one, definitely some speed bumps. It was my first kind of longer text in writing. My other two we discussed before were poetry collections. So I did find sitting down and writing these essays, even though they were fulfilling for me and reflective for me, to be a little more difficult, especially with trying to schedule a bigger time slot to craft them.
So going from poetry to prose, I would imagine that's a whole different mindset. So was that editing process challenging for you?
Yes, it did take time back and forth with my editors, which I appreciate. But being the bigger text, it did take some time to figure out what do we want to cut, what do we want to keep.
So how long of a process would you say this was overall? Was this a long time?
Usually writing and, completing the manuscript, editing the manuscripts takes, I would say, anywhere from, 6 months to a little over a year. So it did take a while to get through.
I got the book right here. I'm looking at the cover, and this is a beautiful cover, Veronica. How did that all come together?
Yeah, so working with a team of artists, I shared some of my ideas of a cover of someone in prayer or reflective in position, kind of like thinking or at prayer. And they took that idea and they added this lovely kind of stained glass layout. Originally, when I was thinking of the cover, I was thinking more kind of neutral tones or even muted tones. So it was definitely a pleasant surprise to see their addition of the splash of color. And I think it really brings out the themes in the text better, especially connecting it back to that stained glass style, something that is common in churches and places of worship.
I imagine it was a big difference. You saw it on your computer screen for a long time, and then when you got it in finally and you saw the cover, I bet you that was a whole new experience just actually seeing that.
Absolutely. I'm glad that they brought this idea to the table because it's definitely something I would not have considered. So I was happy with it, and I think I can see God in it.
So looking ahead, what are you writing next? Is there anything you're working on?
Yes. So I'm working on 2 more poetry collections, sequels to the previous 2. So they're going to kind of focus on the themes in the other texts. So I have the sequel to Discerning the Beloved, which kind of going into that idea of, finding a path in life.
Well, I think this book is going to encourage and help so many people. Again, it's titled, Can You See God? Personal Essays Reflecting on God's Presence in Our World. It's written by Veronica Grace and published by Hawes & Jenkins Publishing. Find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes,
and right down the street at your local bookshop. Well, Veronica, it's been wonderful talking with you again and learning about the book. Thanks again for being here.
Of course, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
I'm looking at a book right now that is a good look at moral foundations. It's titled, In the Words of Our Founders and Other Historians, Philosophers, and Statesmen, Select Writings Defining the Verity of the American Experience, 1804 to 1833. This is Volume 3. It's written by Tullius, and he's right here with me now, and we're going to talk all about this. Tullius, welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I appreciate you joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me all about this? Now, this is Volume 3, so maybe if you could set us up with a little background in the first couple volumes, and then what you brought to the table this time.
The premise of the book really is a look at our country at its founding, and even prior to its founding in the colonial area, and how our government was initially structured once we achieved independence in 1776, and current government that was established at that time up until the U.S. Constitution was established in 1787. And the establishment of the governments and the transition of our government from essentially 1787 to 1833, and it's continued beyond that, has steadily been basically overtaken by people not so friendly to freedom.
So what brought this about? What gave you the idea to start on all this?
You know, the current president, President Trump, has been only recently been talking about the threats to our country. I started this back about 10, 12 years ago, this endeavor. And what brought it about really was kind of an enlightenment over a period of time that things were not as they seemed. The way things were going were so odd and different of what perhaps most Americans, in my age anyway, in their 50s and 60s, what's happening today is so alien to us. And it came to me that there has to be a reason why the society is changing in the direction it is. So I decided that let me go back and see how things were initially set up, by who, what was to be agreed upon, and how we've transitioned since then. But that's really what brought it up, really was a desire to learn the truth.
And what kinds of readers did you have in mind when you were working on this?
Basically, political science, theology, historians.
So prior to this and your first two books, Tullius, have you written, published before?
No, not prior to the first two volumes. No, this is my third book, Volume 3.
So once you had your manuscript together and you worked with the publisher, Christian Faith, and did that whole publishing process, what did you find the most challenging part about all that?
You know, it wasn't really challenging getting it published. It went through the review process, but Christian Faith has been pretty good in bringing it all together. The challenge for me has just been the amount of study and research that it's taken to compile the material. And of course, that's been clearly the biggest challenge. You know, like I said, this has been a 10 or 12 year endeavor for these three books. So that's been the biggest challenge. Once the manuscript was completed, then it was just a review process. That wasn't very challenging at all. They're very helpful.
And once you're finally holding that first copy in your hand and that book is finally a real thing, Tullius, what's that moment like?
Well, it's a great feeling, of course, getting published, especially whenever somebody goes through a trial or tribulation, and that is, in this case, trying to stay focused on a mission, if you will. There's an excellent, the feeling is unlike any other when you finally get your book published. It's a doggone good feeling. Most any author, I suspect, would tell you that.
And when you think about it, you're a published author, your work is out there for the whole world. What's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Well, it feels good not only to be published, but it feels good to get feedback from people who have read it, especially Volume 3. Volume 3 is doing really well. When you get the feedback, and it's positive in nature, at least most of it, that's a good feeling. That means they've been convinced. The reader has been convinced of the writing, and that's a good feeling, especially when you can help somebody. This whole book is designed to help people see and realize, as I said in the beginning, things are not always as they appear.
So looking ahead, what are the chances that we might see some more from you down the road?
Perhaps. I don't know. It's been such a heavy lift. You're talking 450 footnotes, and it's been a very, very heavy lift. I'd like to do another. I got as far as 1833. There could be one more, but I'd like to go to the end of the Civil War. That'd be as far as I could possibly go. But I got a lot going on, too, so other things.
I think readers are really going to be into this. Again, it's titled, In the Words of Our Founders and Other Historians, Philosophers, and Statesmen, Select Writings Defining the Verity of the American Experience, 1804 to 1833. This is Volume 3. It's written by Tullius, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and really available everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Tullius, it's been really nice talking with you tonight. Thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Corey, thank you for having me very much. Good day to you.
The new book by Nancee J Soisson. It's a personal account of healing, faith, and redemption. It's titled A Long Journey Backward, From Darkness to Light. And Nancee is here with me at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable right now, and we're going to talk all about it. Nancee, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Sure, I'm glad to be here.
Nancee, can you tell me all about A Long Journey Backward and what readers are going to find here?
Well, I have to begin by saying that this is actually a sequel to a book that I had published 5 years ago. The first book was entitled A Child from the Inside Out, and it chronicles the first 7 years of my relationship with Lucinda, beginning in 1989. Lucinda came to me for counseling while I was still a student counselor. I was green. I knew nothing. I was very naive. And she had a fierce anger and was wanting help, especially with her 3 small boys. And so within the safety of this relationship that we formed, all kinds of things began to surface. We faced sexual abuse, satanic ritual abuse, suicide attempts, and self-harm, and a totally splintered, fractured personality. The second book, which is titled, as you said before, A Long Journey Backward from Darkness to Light, picks up the story when Lucinda's doing really well. She's had a spiritual epiphany. She's committed to trying to be a better mom for her boys. However, just when everything's looking really good, an unexpected turn of events leads her down a very dark road, a long dark road, and a series of unbelievable happenings had her reeling, had me reeling. Our rock-solid relationship began to crumble, and everything was looking just really helpless and bleak. But in the end, it's with the help of a friend, another therapist, and a messenger from God that Lucinda comes to the end of her ordeal, and I find some inner healing of my own. So these 2 books are really a memoir. I had the incredible privilege of having a front row seat to see God's transforming power in Lucinda's life. I witnessed some truly incredible things I could not have made up. Believe me, I could not have made them up. The story is truly out of the box. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a tragic story, but it's also a true testament to the resilience of the human mind to adapt and survive. It's a story of triumph over trauma. It's a story and a testimony to God's transforming power. I believe it is a very hope-giving book. Now, I have Lucinda here with me, and I had asked her if she'd be willing to say a few words. And so, Lucinda, would you like to just say a few words about the book?
Sure. Me and Nan has taken a journey through dark and light, and I feel like this book needs to be out there because it can touch other people to get healing, also through counselors, but also through the work of God and spiritual walk with God. I really think this could help a lot of people get some healing.
Nancee, prior to this, and prior to the first book as well, do you have experience in this publishing thing, or is this all kind of new for you?
This was all new. I knew nothing.
Was this a long journey overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Oh, it sure has been. It's probably been close to 15 years now since I first sat down to begin to write.
So once you get that first copy in, you've been working on it for so long, and it's finally a real thing in your hands. Nancee, what was that moment like for you?
Oh, it was very exciting. The day that the books arrived, Lucinda happened to be here with her grandson, and her grandson kept telling us there's boxes on the porch. So I went out to get them. There's these boxes, and I'm thinking, oh, what did my husband order now? And bring the boxes in and read the labels, and they were from the publisher. So we ripped them open. It was very exciting to actually hold them in your hands, especially since the profession I was in as a counselor, you don't have that kind of concrete satisfaction of seeing something. I mean, I saw many people healed and a lot of positive movement in people's lives, but it was very different when you could actually hold what you had written, what you had accomplished.
And when you think about it, you're a published author, your work is out there. What's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
That I was able to take this incredible experience that we had together to put it down in writing so that others can marvel, just like we did, at some of the things that happened along the way.
Oh, what a wonderful book. Again, this is titled A Long Journey Backward, From Darkness to Light. It's written by Nancee J Soisson and published by Christian Faith Publishing. Really available everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Nancee, Lucinda, thank you so much for joining me tonight and telling me all about this book. I really appreciate you being here.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was a privilege to be here.
Sitting with me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm really happy to be talking with author Rusty Austin. Rusty, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, Rusty, I'm excited to learn all about your new book titled An Awesome Bird, The Pelican. It includes a do-it-yourself section. So can you tell me all about it?
Well, I have been writing these poems on Facebook about animals, just little short poems. The pelican one goes, an awesome bird, the pelican. He keeps in his beak his food for the week. And then I have a drawing of a pelican on the page. So there's generally about 40 poems in the book.
Rusty, what kind of a reading audience did you have in mind?
Well, it's really designed for grandparents and parents to buy for their kids, but I've had kids as old as 11 or 12 say they really like it. So, and the do-it-yourself section is always lots of fun because they can draw their own picture and write their own poem.
So how did this all come about, Rusty? Where'd you get the idea for all this?
Well, like I said, back in about maybe 2014, 2015, I was writing these little poems on Facebook, and my friend said, oh, you should put them in a book. So that's kind of where the idea came from. And I self-published 3 of them, and this is the 4th one that found an actual publisher.
How long of a process was this for you? Was this a long journey, the writing and then the publishing, all of that?
Yeah, it takes about 4 to 6 months to write it and get it in the publisher's hands and get it all designed. And then the publisher takes another 4 months probably to get it out into the world. So it's probably about a year-long process.
And once you handed that manuscript off to your publisher, Newman Springs, you started that process. Rusty, what did you find the most challenging part of that whole publishing end of things?
Just being patient, because I would send them notes and they would take 2 or 3 weeks to get back to me, which is understandable because it's a lot of work. And that was really the most challenging thing for me, was just to be patient, because when you self-publish, you do it all in like a week.
So after all that time and work that you put into this, you were finally holding that first copy. It was a real thing, Rusty. What was that moment like for you?
Oh, it was great. I felt so happy and proud of my book actually going out to other outlets, you know, because Newman Springs will send it to Amazon and Barnes & Noble and bookstores and airports and all those kinds of things. So when you self-publish, it's just on Amazon only. So that was a great feeling.
So you're a published author. So when you think about that, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Well, this particular book was rewarding because I had met one of the teachers at a local middle school, and I had the kids in her, they were 7th and 8th graders, kids in her class, did all the drawings. And so I had about, I don't know, maybe 100 drawings from all the various kids. And the funny thing was, one of the poems was about an axolotl, and the kids mostly liked the axolotl. So I got a whole lot of axolotl photos or pictures, illustrations. And so what I did was the ones I didn't actually use with the poems, I just put it in the book as just like separate pages of illustrations. So that was really the most rewarding part of this book.
Looking ahead, what are the chances that we might see some more from you?
Well, I singled out 3 or 4 of the kids that were like the very best ones from the class, and I've got a new book ready for them called The Two-Headed Snake. And I hired, I think 3 or 4 of them to do the illustrations for that one. So hopefully we'll get that one on Newman Springs as well.
Yeah, the illustrations are such an important part of this book. Was that a smooth process?
It was long but smooth, yeah. The teacher that taught the class did a really good job of making a whole whiteboard grid for the kids to each follow along and which kid was doing which picture. And then, she could help them choose the media. Some kids were pencil, some kids were pen, watercolors, whatever. And so that part was really pretty good. And the art teacher at the school helped a lot too.
Well, we have a lot of people listening to us right now who are authors who are just starting out. Rusty, do you have maybe some advice that you could offer them?
Yes. I think Stephen King was one that said it best. The art of writing is applying the seat of the pants to the seat of the chair. That's so true.
I love it.
Because you have to put in the work. It's not, I mean, let's face it, some of us are overnight successes. I mean, I think a book called The Bridges of Madison County was the only book that guy ever wrote, and it was like 4 paragraphs long, and it sold 25 million copies. But for the other 99.99% of us, we have to put in the work. There's no shortcuts.
So do you ever get plagued with things like writer's block and those kind of challenges?
Yes. I try to write down the poems on my phone or on my computer when they come to me. And sometimes it's really hard just to come up with one. And usually they just come out of thin air. So it's a process for sure.
Well, what a wonderful book. Again, this is titled An Awesome Bird, The Pelican. Includes a do-it-yourself section. This is written by Rusty Austin and published by Newman Springs Publishing, so you can find it everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Rusty, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thanks so much for being on the show.
You bet, and thanks for calling me. I really appreciate the time and money you spent on me. Thanks again.
We're going to be talking about a book right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. That's a memoir that chronicles the vibrant story of the author's family. This is written by Lynne, and it's titled The Mojer Mafia. Not that mafia, but my family. Sherry is right here with me now, and we're going to be talking all about it. Sherry, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
I'm really curious about the Mojer Mafia, Sherry. Can you tell me all about this?
Well, as you said, and as the title gives away, it is about my family. It spans 3 generations, from my grandparents, my parents, and myself, and all the relatives in those generations, but it's primarily about the middle generation, my parents, and my mother's brothers and sisters.
Sherry, what sorts of readers did you have in mind for it?
Well, anyone who likes unbelievable but true stories.
So what was that spark? What gave you the idea to write this and publish it?
We have been told, my family and I, my siblings, my parents, my uncles and aunts, and we talked about our lives, and everybody says, you have to write a book about your family and tell all of these stories. I mean, we have heard that literally thousands of times. So somebody always needed to write this book, and I knew that I was the only one that was going to actually get it done.
Have you ever done anything like this before, Sherry, or is this all kind of new ground for you?
Oh, it's totally new ground. I've never written anything other than in college and letters.
Well, congratulations on that first one out there. So was this a long process for you overall, the writing and publishing and all that?
It was. The writing, I actually started writing the book 20 years ago. And I would try to write. I played with making it fictional and writing an autobiographical novel type of thing. I picked it up and put it down many times. And then it was finally just a few years ago, I became very serious about it. I sat down. It took me about 2 years to put it together.
Then once you handed that manuscript off to your publisher, Newman Springs, you start that publishing process. What did you find the most challenging part of that for you?
Well, it took a very long time, and it was very methodical. For example, while they were proofreading and editing, I had some ideas about the cover art, and I wanted to go ahead and work on that, but I'm sure it's because they're dealing with so many people and they do things in a particular order and you have to stick to that order. And they tell you right up front, it's going to take a long time.
So once that first copy came in and you were finally holding it, Sherry, what kind of a moment was that like for you?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. And then the reality finally hit me and it was probably the proudest moment of my life. I've had so many proud moments. It was wow.
So looking ahead, do you think you would do this kind of thing again and write and publish more?
I'm not sure if I will write anymore, but there is more to this story. I would like to continue it and I would like to keep going, but I think it might be better if I work with a screenwriter and tell the story that way.
So now that you're officially a published author, Sherry, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
It's something that I have been thinking about nearly all my life, and it's something that I've been talking about since I started it 20 years ago. And so the fact that I was really able to accomplish it, that's the most rewarding thing. I did it.
Well, it sounds like readers are going to love this. Again, it's titled The Mojer Mafia. Not that mafia, but my family. This is written by Lynne and published by Newman Springs Publishing, so find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Sherry, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me and for helping me get my book out there. I do think readers will enjoy it. It's got some great stories in it.
The book I'm looking at right now is a tale that follows a young boy with one arm who achieves his dream of playing baseball. It's titled Baseball Bob and the One-Armed Wonder. It's written by Bob McDuff, and Bob is here with me now, and we get to talk all about this book. Bob, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you very much, Corey. Nice to be with you.
I'm curious to learn all about Baseball Bob and the One-Armed Wonder. Can you tell me what you've written about here?
Yeah, well, as you said, Baseball Bob is a 13-year-old boy who pitches for his neighborhood baseball team, the Redbirds. And he also manages the team when Coach Tommy takes a little snooze in the dugout or he forgets to come to a game. So when that happens, well, Bob coaches the team. And one day, before an important game, a player is missing for the Redbirds. And Mr. Umpire tells Bob that if he doesn't hand in his lineup card in the next 5 minutes, the Redbirds will lose by default. So a young boy in the stands hears this conversation and he offers his services to Bob. Bob looks at the little boy and the problem is that the boy has only one arm. So how can he possibly play baseball, right? So the book tells the story of Peter Gray. Peter Gray is a real-life baseball player who had only one arm. Because of his perseverance, he made it to the big leagues. So the story is that's pretty much the story in a nutshell.
Bob, what kinds of readers did you have in mind for this?
Kids, boys and girls between 4 and preteens. They really love the characters because the characters are, 12, 13-year-olds, so they can easily relate to them. So they love the characters. Of course, my buyers are the parents and grandparents and teachers who are aware of the importance of reading for the kids.
So how did this come about, Bob? What gave you that spark to start on it?
Okay, that's quite a story. In 1922, my wife and I had just finished, we founded a baseball museum in our hometown. So we had spent about 3 years doing all the research and then another 2 years of setting up the museum, finding the artifacts and everything. And at the same time, since I was doing the research for the museum, I wrote a book. It was a historical book called The Story of Professional Baseball in Trois-Rivières, in my hometown. So after 5 years of this work, came time for the grand opening and for the launch of the book, and everybody was there. And one of my good friends came up to me after the event, and he says, Bob, he says, with all your experience and your knowledge and your passion for baseball, you should write books for kids. And my wife standing beside me said, no way. And I also said, no way. I mean, we've just gone through 5 years of work and I'm not about to start or to embark on another such project. So no way, not interested. Thank you. But my friend is very persistent and insistent. And he kept after me and after me and after me until one day we were vacationing in Florida. And one night I couldn't sleep. I got up, went to the kitchen table and started thinking about my story. And I was thinking about what I had found about Peter Gray when I was researching for the museum, because Peter Gray had played in my hometown in the 1930s and 40s before making it to the big leagues. So I started writing on this. And by the time my wife woke up at 7 o'clock, I had written my story. And it's funny because even after all the editing and everything, I don't think we changed a word from my original story. So that's really how it came about.
So that day finally came after all that hard work, after all that time, and you're holding this for the first time in your hands. It's a real thing. What was that like, Bob?
That feeling was incredible. It was awesome. I mean, it's hard to put in words, but you take it in your hands and you say, hey, that's my name on that book. It's awesome.
I think readers are really going to love this book and the series. Again, this is titled Baseball Bob and the One-Armed Wonder. It's written by Bob McDuff, published by Newman Springs Publishing, and available really everywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Bob, it's been wonderful talking with you tonight, learning all about this book. Thanks again for being here.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
The the new book that just came out, written by Lady Bridget O. It's titled A Fight with Immigration, and it's a memoir of struggle and triumph. And Lady Bridget is here with me now. We're going to talk all about the book. Lady Bridget, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Bridget, can you tell me all about A Fight with Immigration and what you wrote about in here?
A Fight with Immigration is a book written by Lady Bridget, and it's a Christian-motivated true story about an African-born descent who resided to the USA. Basically, the challenges as a foreigner that most of us go through, and then trying to let the world know that with God, all things are possible regardless the challenges or regardless your situation. And also wanted the citizens to also know what some of we, the foreigners, go through in their country.
What kinds of readers did you have in mind for this?
My target readers are all the citizens and then the immigration system of the global north countries and the immigrants as well. And anybody who is possibly going through or facing immigration challenges or personal challenges, your problem or your situation might not be specifically immigration, but you might be going through challenges in life. And so I feel like sharing a story or encouraging or inspiring that person out there to never give up. And possibly my experience in life can help that person to hold on in life.
So how did this book come about, Lady Bridget? What was that spark that made you decide to get started on it?
I grew up in Africa before I came here. Growing up, I've gone through a lot of things as a child who grew up in Africa, and then I'm in America here. I feel like the world needs to hear a story of a young child or of a young girl who went through all the resilience in life and still standing up and still not giving up. And so I started this about 5 years ago, the book, because I wanted to share the story out there to somebody or anybody who possibly might need help.
So have you been published prior to this one?
This is my first book.
Oh, congratulations. So once you began working with your publisher, with Christian Faith Publishing, and starting that publishing process, what did you find the most challenging part of that end of things?
The waiting time. The waiting time, was really challenging. I felt like somebody out there is possibly going through something that need urgent help with the book. And so the waiting time was a little bit challenging.
Lady Bridget, what was it like when you got to hold the first copy of A Fight with Immigration and it was finally in your hands for the first time?
When I first got the copy, I was really happy. And my happiness was all because finally somebody can get the help they may need through my encouraging or through my words.
Looking ahead, do you see yourself maybe writing more and getting more published?
Possibly.
So now that you are a published author, your work is out there for the whole world. Lady Bridget, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
The most rewarding for me is me seeing somebody getting healed, somebody standing up for themselves, somebody getting encouraged through my story.
For all of our listeners who are authors just starting out, Lady Bridget, do you have any advice that you could offer?
One advice, or maybe any advice that I'll give to any author out there, is just be inspired to write. Don't keep what you have in you. Just let it come out. Be inspired. And know your reason for writing it, and that will help you.
Well, this is definitely an important book. It's titled A Fight with Immigration. It's written by Lady Bridget O. and published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Lady Bridget, it's been really great talking with you tonight. Thank you again for being with me on the show.
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
The new book by Shera Hinostrosa. It's titled Loki's XL Life, and it's a tale that follows the wondrous adventure of Loki, an XL American bully with a heart of gold. And Shera is sitting right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We get to talk all about this book. Shera, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm curious to learn all about Loki's XL life. So, Shera, can you tell me all about what you've written here?
The first book that I've got, Loki's XL Life, is an introduction to the wonderful world of Loki. He's a certified emotional support pet. So he goes absolutely everywhere I go and loves making new friends every single day. And that kind of was what prompted me to write the book, is just to get it out there. Kids love him. Adults love him. So I thought, you know what? We're going to write a book, starting writing books, actually, about the adventures that we have.
What sort of a reading audience did you have in mind?
It's definitely a children's book. Definitely a children's book, but adults love him as well as children do. So it's kind of a whole package.
So what does your writing background look like? Prior to this, have you been published or have you written a lot?
No, this is my first published book.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And I would have to say, everybody dreams of writing a book. We all have a dream of a book we could write. But the match between Loki and I and the fun we have and the things we do, it came extremely natural to sit down and start writing about some of these things.
So being your first book, was this a long process for you, the writing and publishing process and everything?
The writing process, no. I mean, I literally sat down in an evening and just started, putting my thoughts, on paper, so to speak, and then just kind of reorganized everything, and there it was. The publishing process was really very simple. I kind of researched some publishers, and once I settled on who I was going to do, it was, they walked me through absolutely everything. It couldn't have been better. The book took a little bit longer to publish, but that was on my end, just because not knowing what I was doing and not knowing what I wanted and all of that kind of stuff, I took a little bit longer at making decisions. But moving forward, now that I know the process, that won't be the case.
A super important part of books like this is the illustrations. And so was that a smooth process as well, getting that just right to what you had pictured in your head?
Yeah, actually, the illustration part was perfect. Absolutely perfect. They captured his personality and his look and the whole thing that I was going for.
And there's nothing like seeing that finished product after all that work that you put into it. So that day came, you're holding your first copy for the first time, Shera. What was that like?
Oh my gosh, it was very emotional. It was, it was like, oh my gosh, some tears of joy. And it's like, I really did this, and just wanting to share it with other people.
And now you're officially a published author. So when you think about that, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
You know what? For me, the most rewarding thing is being able to meet people and, share the book with people. I've given several books away to kids and people that I know that have kids that I know would really benefit from a fun, kind of loving, light book. But anytime I go out with the book or whatever, I take Loki with me. And I think that's been the best thing. It's just people connecting with, oh, wow, this is the character from the book. And they get to meet him and pet him and love him.
I love it. So looking down the road, do you see yourself publishing more, do you think?
Yes. In fact, I have book number 2 is in the publishing process, and I have 8 sequential books that I've written that are going to go into a series rather than just, like an individual standalone book.
Well, we have a lot of listeners right now who are authors just starting out. So, Shera, do you maybe have some advice that you could toss out there for them?
You know what? I think the biggest thing that I would say is, if you have an idea, if you have a dream, just go for it. Start putting it on paper. And again, research who you feel would be a best fit for you to work with as an author. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just do it afraid. It's the saying that I did.
Yeah, that's good advice. Again, it's titled Loki's XL Life. It's written by Shera Hinostrosa, published by Newman Springs Publishing, and available really everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Shera, it's been so nice talking with you tonight and learning all about Loki and about this book. Thanks again.
Thank you. I appreciated the opportunity to talk to your audience.
I'm really happy to be sitting down right now with author Clarence Bowden here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Clarence, welcome. I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. Clarence, wanted to say congratulations. You have a new book out. It's titled 5 Steps Plus Reentry Workbook. So, Clarence, can you tell me all about this?
Okay, so 5 Steps Reentry Workbook is a companion. I wrote it to be a companion, but it can be utilized independently. It's basically each of the steps has 10 questions related to changing behavior that's sustainable. But also that is going to be, for the individual, something that's going to be lasting, it's going to be challenging, and each of the 10 questions relate to a particular step.
What sorts of readers did you have in mind for this, Clarence?
So I'm looking for anyone in the community that have contact with the criminal justice system, their families, their loved ones, programs that's working with these individuals as well. Recidivism is something in this country, and I'm sure you might know if you might have had other authors. It is a terrible thing. And what makes it so terrible is that it is something that could be defeated. It doesn't have to happen. Behavioral change can happen with individuals having the right resources. My book is relatable, it's solution-focused, and what I wanted to do most is make it not so lengthy.
Clarence, how did this come about? What gave you the idea to start this?
Okay, so my history, I'm a person in long-term recovery. I have my own background with criminal justice. I served prison time in the late 70s. After doing that time, I did not learn my lessons, so to speak, because I would go in and out of prison. Well, not prison, first prison and then in and out of jails, which are two separate things. But it took me going into drug use, overcoming the drug use, going into treatment, and then in 1989, getting a job working as a counselor. Going through the trainings, the classes, and then looking at myself and learning about myself and being able to see the impact that I had on those communities with my selling of drugs and the impact on my family. And so that got me to the idea of writing. I never thought that I would go ahead and complete a book. I would just be writing things on paper, putting it aside, things I observed. But then as I became more professional in the work I was doing and started moving up as senior counselor, case manager, director, then I started seeing that I could put those things in a way where it can help individuals not go down the route that I went. And so in 1999, I started putting things together. And that's how the genesis of the first book, 5 Steps to a Successful Reentry, and now this here workbook came into play.
Once you got started on the workbook, was this a long journey overall for you, or did things come together fairly quickly?
Actually, the workbook came together fairly quickly because I'm going to say that I already had an idea for it, but I just didn't have in mind the mechanism, the finances, and those things to put it into place. But the ideas, especially the questions, like I said, I worked with counseling for a long time. I was a director of the Center of Treatment Innovation in Brooklyn, the CODI program. I was a clinical director of a treatment facility for incarcerated individuals coming out mandated to treatment. So I've done that. I've also was an employee with the New York City Department of Health Original AIDS Hotline counseling. I did that for 10 years. All of those things, I would say, molded me to write these 2 particular books. But the question, to answer your question, the questions for the workbook, they were already there. And they are clinical in nature. They are written to have an individual that is reading it, whether they have a criminal justice background or not, to look at behavior change if they are involved in activities that may be unhealthy for them or their family.
This is titled 5 Steps Plus Reentry Workbook. It's written by Clarence Bowden and published by Covenant Books. So find it really anywhere, places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Oh, Clarence, it's been wonderful talking with you and learning all about this book. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
The book we're going to be talking about right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is a reflection on faith, resilience, and self-discovery. It's written by Sherinda Pringle, and it's titled The Journey of Rediscovering Me. And Sherinda is here with us now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We get to talk all about this book. Sherinda, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing great. I'm curious to learn all about the journey of rediscovering me, Sherinda. Can you tell me all about it?
Oh, yes. Boy, what a journey it was. The journey of rediscovery of me is basically a story of resilience and faith during a really difficult time in my life. I don't want to give the book away, but I will say that it takes place when my creator set me down for a minute and I had an opportunity to reflect back on my life and how I'd gotten into that predicament and think about those things and learn from the things that I considered at that time to be mistakes and grow from those things to just learn and enjoy life.
Sherinda, what kind of a reading audience did you have in mind?
The audience that I had in mind would be any person who is rethinking things that they've done in their lives, people who are looking for some type of transformation, people who are doing a period of reflection, people who are newly finding their way, possibly people who are looking to start a family. It really has something for a bit of everyone, even as people are looking to retire and look back on their life. There's a little something for everyone in this book, but specifically, I have made a career of assisting people who are looking to face fear and overcome the traumas related to those fears so that they could live the life that they own as opposed to the one that someone has dictated to them.
So what was that spark, Sherinda? What made this idea come about for you?
About 19 years ago, when I was in that predicament and my creator set me down for a few minutes, a good friend of mine that I worked with at the time said, "Hey, you should write a book." And I thought at that moment about what? Do you see how sucky my life is at the moment? And that was only my perspective. She thought that my life at that point was intriguing. And so it took me a while to get there, and I believe I had to get on the other side of it to see it, but it was something that been nudging at me since that moment that she told me.
So this is your first book then?
This is my first book. I have been writing my whole life, but this is the first time that I actually published something, yes.
Congratulations. So being your first, was this a long journey from you, the writing and the publishing and everything?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I did not expect that it would take so long. I can honestly say first I needed to find the discipline. I actually started writing this book after ending another vicarious moment in my life when I left my job. And I was just going to take some time off, get my thoughts together and figure out what it was that I wanted to do next. I don't know if that job had outgrown me or I outgrew it, but it was time to leave. And I laid in the bed every day, and I would wake up at about 3 o'clock every morning, and I couldn't go back to sleep. And as I laid there, I'm like, you're supposed to be doing something. I'm like, yeah, but I just want to sleep. After about 6 months of doing that, I had a conversation with my creator, and I'm like, oh, so I pick up a pen and paper, got the pen and paper and laid it in the bed, and we slept together for about 3 months. And finally, I rose over when I was awakened and started writing, and that took about 6 months until I actually completed the book, and it was something that I thought was worth publishing.
The Journey of Rediscovering Me. This is written by Sherinda Pringle and published by Christian Faith Publishing and available places like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, also right down the street at your local bookshop. Well, Sherinda, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being on the show with me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.